The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the weirdly cartoonish oil painting of your father with the Judge Doom eyes, that is Hayden Orr. My pronouns are also he, him.
Yeah, there's a lot of a weird sort of cartoonish quality to this movie in a lot of ways, and certainly that painting is the central thing about it that is that way. But the brain itself in this is really funny to me. It is... it's the idea of a brain, but it is like in no way are you to believe that it is an actual brain. Like it is not in any way like special effects, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if your children were putting on, a play in the backyard, they would have a brain that looked like this.
Yeah, it's like, it's really, I think out of all of the adaptions we've seen so far, it's kind of the crappiest looking special effects, which granted, the Lady and the Monster brain wasn't like the most amazing looking fake brain that's ever been put on film, but I still feel like it had a little bit more going on with it than the one in this movie.
Yeah, this is just like super, super low budget. But it interestingly, so it's directed by Freddie Francis, who has done other things that including like some of the Hammer, he did
Evil of Frankenstein. He did Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. I think he was also the cinematographer for a bunch of like crazy stuff too. Well, I've got it pulled up.
Yeah. I was gonna say, he did some stuff that like bigger stuff. Like he was the DP on Cape Fear.
Yes.
The Scorsese one. Like
he was the DP on The Straight Story, the David Lynch film, The Straight Story.
And the Elephant Man, so he's done some like big stuff, but to his credit, like this is basically the first thing he did pretty much. I think he maybe did one. I think he did maybe a real cheesy sort of rom-com, and then went straight into this kind of more genre heavy stuff. And this feels like his sort of crash course on how to do that kind of stuff. So. I mean, good for him that he went from this to like real big stuff.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, this definitely feels like, he has a couple dollars and a dream and decides to make this, Donovan's Brain adaptation. Which the weird thing is, this way, the opening credits, they're based upon, the novel Donovan's Brain, but then all the character names are just changed. All of our other adaptations have had the same character names for the most part. We're, Donovan specifically, but this, we don't have Donovan anymore. We have someone else.
Yeah.
So
Dr. Corey's the same, but it's spelt differently than the last couple of times we've got Dr. Corey.
Mm-hmm. And we have still a trio of Dr. Corey, his male friend, and his female romantic interest / nurse assistant, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I don't know if they ever actually say her name in the movie, but I think it's Ella, based on the credits, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But she's been like Jan or Janice in like every other thing we've seen. I'm not really sure why that changed. But and this feels like it kind of falls in between the two previous ones we've talked about in terms of like the actual plot elements, which, you know, again makes me all the more curious about what the novel's going to be like when we get to it.
Yeah. They really focus in on the murder mystery aspect in this one.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, we had our first one was a murder mystery, but it was, you know, there was someone else in jail and we were trying to figure out how he was tied to Donovan and all of that. Mm-hmm. And then our second one was more about Donovan's finances. He was a tax evader and all of this. But this time around, it's not Donovan. It's Max Holt, who is trying to solve his own murder. In this one, it's not an accidental plane crash. Holt, at least, believes it's an intentional plane crash, and is, you know, using his like telepathic control of Corey to solve his own murder.
Yeah, he's not really, for the most part, doing a lot of nefarious shit in this one. I mean, there's a couple times where he's being like a shitty rich person, but like especially compared to the other plots, Max Holt is certainly not a Donovan.
Yeah, he has some like sketchy like rich guy doing shitty business deal stuff in a way that fucks other people over. But like, you know, what else is new?
Yeah.
But like outside of that, yeah, he's not like doing murders or you know, any of that kind of thing. It's just he's a corrupt rich guy. But yeah, there's the fact that like he was murdered and is solving his own murder, I think is a really fun angle for this story. It is unique to the other, which I appreciate that even like, you know, this sort of small batch of movies we're talking about, that like they're managing to do different stuff with this one source material.
Yeah, it's I would much rather have a bunch of like adaptations that are, you know, that are each trying to maybe do something different rather than say like a Psycho 94, where it's literally like a shot for shot remake.
Yeah, I like that's just such a waste. Like, who cares? You can tell a new story, even if you're adapting something old. Tell a new story. I mean, you know, we've done so many Frankenstein movies here, and for the most part, they've all had something unique to give us. And yeah, I appreciate that. I think as we go further, I think the next couple that we're going to talk about are even going to be diverting more from the source material. And you know, great. That's all the better. Like, you know, as it goes, that's what I would prefer. It'll get weirder and more, you know, esoteric away from the where we started.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into it then. So, you know, this time, like, because this is more a murder mystery, like our Donovan type character Holt is sort of more a central figure. You know, in every other version, we start with the scientists, and then they're alerted that there's been a plane crash, and then that's when we start interacting with the Donovan's world. But here, we start out, we have a car driving through the countryside, arriving at an airport. A man gets out, and we do this like sort of classic sort of, you know, Bond villain, Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget thing, where we never really get to see this guy. We see the back of his head. We see he's holding like an attaché case with a monogram MH on it. And, you know, he boards the plane, flies away, and then we get a lot of like this really great. So he's on the plane, and then elsewhere on the plane are a woman who's like his secretary and a man who is some sort of assistant that also helps him with things. And Holt, we're just hearing his voice. He's talking over an intercom and he's bossing them around. Like, you know, send a letter to this person, write up this, stamp this, you know, just like he's a very commanding presence, and we've still not even seen him. He's not even in the room, and he's just controlling everything. And to the point that like we do eventually get some shots of him, but again, it's like the back of his head. We like I don't think we ever actually see his face. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there's one scene near the end where Dr. Corey is actively being possessed by him, where we get like a shot of his eyes really strongly, but we still like the rest of his face is still almost completely in silhouette. So we never actually see what Max Holt, looks like.
Which is all the more reason that the painting is so great, because it's this weird, not realistic but very imposing figure, and that's our, that's all we get to see of him is this strange like comic book villain almost.
Yeah.
So like that's the way his son sees him, and then that's the way that we see him as well. But I think we have some interactions on the plane, and then we cut away to our scientists. So yeah, as you said, we've got Dr. Corey, who is Peter, and then his friend Frank, and Ella. And they are performing their early stage experiments. They're doing it with a monkey brain, which is sort of a repeated refrain. We have this monkey brain to start things, but like even in these early stages, in the other versions, like the whole idea of like connecting to the brain telepathically and all that comes like later. But here, they are connecting electrodes to Ella and having her like send thought waves into the monkey brain to try to get it to respond. So that's like the part of the experiment right from the get-go. And in fact, I don't know that they ever like have a justification for why they're doing what they're doing. Every time it's been a little bit different, and in this case I don't think they ever say what the purpose of this is.
No, I don't remember them ever saying anything about it. I think at this point, like it's the third or fourth adaptation, they're like, people get it. It's Donovan's brain. We don't need to say it out loud.
Yeah. So, they're kind of discussing the quality, like, what are people going to think when they hear about what we're doing and all this. And then we go back to the plane where Holt is continuing to discuss his plans for when he lands. And then suddenly the plane explodes in the sky. So, again, this is not a plane crash. Something has happened in the air to this plane. And I think then we're back in the lab. They get the phone call that there's been a plane crash, and all hands on deck. Any doctors in the area? We need help. And so we have Peter and Frank at the crash site. And again, this is like less nefarious. The first one was the one that was really nefarious, where they were just like straight up like, cool, let's go steal some bodies. Here they're like doing everything they can to help, but like the ambulances are not going to get there in time. They're like, okay, maybe we can just throw them in our cars and get them to the hospital, but I don't even know if we can get to the hospital in time. Our lab's just down the road, so let's go there. And so, of course, everybody else is just dead, but Holt looks like he's kind of hanging on, so they're trying to do everything they can. They don't know he's important yet. He's just a guy, and they're just, doing doctor shit. They're trying to save a life. And back in the lab, we have like, they work for a little bit, and it's just kind of like, no, it's not gonna, he's too far gone. We tried our best. But then Peter's like, what if we tried to like communicate with the brain, telepathically, and that still doesn't work. But then suddenly they've got like a ticker tape, looks like a lie detector kind of thing. And it starts making marks, and they're like, oh shit. Like maybe this is happening. This brain is alive. And so Peter right away is like, all right, Frank, you gotta, let's get this brain out, get it back in the fish tank. We're gonna do this. And, as has been the case previously, Frank is very resistant to this. Like, I'm not doing this for a human. Like, monkeys is fine. I appreciate you giving me work. You know why I've had to leave. He several times says stuff about like, you know why I'm not at the hospital anymore, but it's never spelled out the way it has been in the past ones. I don't know if he made a mistake, or like, 'cause, we've had him as like an alcoholic in other versions and stuff, but unless I'm forgetting something, I don't think they ever really say what the deal here was.
No, I don't think they do either. It's left very vague.
But like Peter just kind of keeps begging, and then we just like cut to later. We have an associate of Holt's. I'm pretty sure this is Stevenson. This is our first meeting of. We have a few associates of Holt's that we're going to meet over the course of this, and he's talking to. Like he's identifying the body, and he wants his effects and all this, and the police are like, no, we're only going to release his effects to the person controlling his estate, and he's like, okay, fine. Well, do you know the doctors that helped him? I'd like to talk to them and thank them for trying and everything. And even though they're very protective of his effects, they're right away like, yeah, those guys, they live down the road. Tell them exactly how to find them. Which seems, like probably not the best call. But yeah, so they go straight, he goes straight to them and starts talking to them, and he's like, did he have any last words and all this? And, they're like, no, he was out the entire time we had him. Like, it didn't work. But, he really, like, we tried our best, and he was clearly fighting as hard as he could. He seems like a very strong, exceptional man. It was just the damage was too great. He's like, yeah, he was an exceptional man. I don't think you realize how exceptional. Later tonight, you'll see on the news, and you'll realize the importance of the man that you were working on. And we cut straight to a news report about, Max Holt. He was this financial genius, this entrepreneur. He did all this great stuff. And like they're doing like the obituary on the news. And then we see that like our three scientists are the ones watching the news. They turn off the TV. And Frank is like, I still can't believe that I let you convince me to take the brain. Obviously that was what was going to happen, but they kind of like make you wait a little bit to see if Peter was able to successfully convince Frank. Right away, we've had like various versions of this where like we're trying to figure out a way to communicate and stuff. There had that stupid mirror array thing. And then I think we had like some sort of sound effect thing. This time we were connected to just like a light bulb that like flickers when the brain has activity. So that's how they're able to tell when like the brain's awake and thinking. But so they know when it is thinking, but they don't know what it's thinking. And Frank's like, I bet if we could figure it out, we could learn a lot about the crash, because rumors are that some people saw there was an explosion in the sky before the plane crashed. So maybe there's more to this story than just a simple plane crash. So yeah, we're already getting our sort of setup that this is going to be a mystery. And I think like that night we have, Peter doing the automatic writing thing. Mm-hmm. And in this case, the automatic writing is a list of names. It's Anna, Walters, Stevenson, Martin, and Marion Fain. And then Max Holt signed at the bottom. So, we have like the next morning, the trio's kind of talking about it. And, Frank is like, yeah, so you wrote this with your left hand? Well, Holt was left-handed. And weirdly, like, Frank is not very active in this mystery for the most part, but right here he shows himself to be like a pretty good detective. Peter's like, how do you know he was left-handed? And he gives a list of a couple things. It's like there was a little bit of ink on his fingertips, or like he like Sherlock Holmes this basically.
Yeah.
He figured it out without any like official confirmation, but he knows.
He was so apt with it that I was kind of expecting that he would play a bigger role in like, unraveling the mystery, but they just kind of forget that he's, good at being a detective, I guess.
Yeah. I don't it was a strange thing to just do and then move away from. But as they're talking about that, the doorbell rings, and it is the mortuary attendant who was there when Holt's associate was identifying the body, and like we saw in one of the previous two versions, he is here to blackmail. He knows the brain was missing, and he would like a little bit of money so that he doesn't feel that he needs to mention this to Holt's family.
Yeah.
But differently than other versions, Peter is just not having it. He's just like, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not giving you a dime.
Yeah, he doesn't give a fuck.
Like, yeah, like he straight up, like, I forget exactly, but he's just like, go to hell. Like he like, says that, and just like sends the guy out, slams the door, and he right away goes over to the tank and he puts his hand on it, and we get our first, we often have these little like visual clues to tell us when the brain is taking over. We've had like the limp or whatever, but here it's like this sort of like nervous tick where like the thumb is like tapping sort of like impatiently. And so, yeah, we see, he puts his hands on the tank and we see the hand kind of doing that. And then suddenly Peter, sort of in a trance, just like goes and attacks Frank. And it's like one of those things where like, I think they like shut off the equipment going into the brain or whatever, and he kind of snaps out of it, and he's like, whoa, I wasn't in control there for a second. Like I knew what was happening, but I couldn't stop myself. And I don't know what we should do. And Frank's like, well, I mean, it sounds like Holt is glad we did this. It does sound like he is invested in living on and like finding out something about, like it seems like we're working for Holt now, whether we like it or not. So maybe we should go to the funeral and see if we can figure some stuff out. And I think that we just cut straight from that to the funeral, where Peter is kind of like, looking around, eyeballing a couple. There's like a young woman near the front that he's looking at. But he gets interrupted by the mortuary attendant again, who's like, so you had some time to think about that whole bribe deal we were talking about? Peter's like, it's not going to happen. And he's like, I mean, I could pull some strings. I could exhume the body. And he's like, good luck. It's getting ready to get fucking cremated.
Yeah. Which I have never seen a cremation happen like during the funeral.
Yeah, absolutely wild. Like, yeah, it like rolls down a track into the the incinerator directly from the funeral. But yeah, so Peter is just absolutely not fazed. And I think then we have like a little later, he's like at Holt's house, and he's speaking to the woman that he saw earlier, who is Holt's daughter, also his son, and two of the associates. I believe this is Walters and Stevenson.
Yeah.
And like this is where we see the crazy painting. The son talks about that a little bit. That he's like, this is the way I saw my father, and I gave it to him as a cruel joke, and like he got back at me by hanging it prominently in his house and making it like stare down ominously at anyone who comes into the house. So their relationship is clearly pretty fucked up. But the daughter, meanwhile, seems a little bit more like dedicated to her. Like she seems like the more business minded person who like wants to take over the family business and all of this. The son, though, is like, I think that the crash was a murder, and you should talk to Anna about it. I think she's more involved in that side of the things, and she might be able to help you out to figure out who might have done that. And so like Peter goes elsewhere into the house, I think to like find Anna, but instead he goes into this room where there is a parrot. It's like a study, but there's just also a parrot squawking for some reason. And again, this is one of those things where like I was like, oh, this is going to be the Chekhov's parrot of this movie.
Yeah.
It's going to really tell us something later. It does not.
No.
Nothing comes about from this parrot. But he does sit down and kind of go into a trance, and he hallucinates some of Holt's memories, some interactions with people, and then is suddenly like woken up as Anna comes into the room, and he shows her the list that he wrote. And she's like, where did you get this list that my dad wrote with, this list of names? What does this mean? And Peter's like, I was hoping to find out from you what the list means. I don't know who these people are. This was just something that was found on your father. And I'm, just trying to figure it out. And when he wakes up, he says something, I think fair, I think is what he says.
Yeah. He screams it out.
And yeah. And so she doesn't want to say anything about the names. And he's like, but what did I say when I woke up? And she was like, you said fair, which is a nickname that only my father had for me. No one else would have ever said that. But she's just kind of doesn't pursue that right now. I would be right away why did my dad tell you to call me that? There's got to be something going on here. Maybe you're not going to jump to my dad is possessing you, but I would have questions there.
Yeah.
But instead we have we go to two sort of scenes playing out at the same time, which is Peter going to speak to Sullivan, the lawyer, and the mortuary attendant coming to the house to talk to Anna. And he's like, I've got this really valuable information. You're going to want to pay me for it. And she's like, what's the information? And he's like, you're going to want to pay me for it. And she's like, why would I give you money? You haven't said anything. What how do I know you have anything? This guy is the world's worst blackmailer.
Yeah. He does not know how to negotiate.
And again, he's somebody that just doesn't really amount to anything. Which makes me think that there probably is some sort of blackmail subplot in the novel.
Yeah, there's got to be.
And that this movie was well, I guess we got to have that character, but we don't know what to do with him, so we're just have him pop in and be ineffectual, and then bring him back a couple of times, and that be that. But while that conversation is going on, Peter is talking to the lawyer, and he wants to know, did Holt have any enemies? Who would have gained something from his death? Who's in the will? And the lawyer kind of shuts all that down. Why would I tell you any of this? The only people in the will get to know who's in the will, and that's none of your business. And then Peter's like, what about Marion Fane? Does that name ring a bell? And he's like, nope, I don't know anybody named that. And if I did, I wouldn't tell you, basically. So, I think Peter leaves at that point, and we have the trio at a bar later playing darts. And just, it's sort of a break from all of the craziness. They're just having fun. But then we see that the blackmailer guy is in the corner watching them, just giving them the evil eye. And Peter notices him, and then it's his turn at darts, and he throws a couple, and then he looks back over, and the guy's gone. And Peter's like, that's weird. And then we just cut to the house where he has, he has slipped away and is now breaking into the house. He's like, well, they're busy at the bar. This is a chance where I can get in there and no one will see me.
Yeah. I got to say real quick, and we'll see it, the further we get into the movie, but this is the most break-intoable house in a film that I've seen in a while. They must just not have any fucking locks on any of the doors in this place.
Yeah, I feel like if I had, a stolen brain and a fish tank in my house, I would lock the outside doors. I would also go ahead and lock the basement door.
Yeah.
There would be several different locks between the outside world and my stolen brain. But I guess built different. They're just, anybody who wants to pop in and see what's going on is welcome here. So the mortuary attendant does get to the tank, sees the brain, and he goes over and touches the tank. But whereas, with Peter, when he did it, Holt sort of took over. Here, he touches the tank, and that light that indicates the brain processing things gets very bright, just flashes in the guy's face, and we just see him kind of like a close up on of him screaming, and then we just cut to like the next day. The science trio is in the house talking to the police, and they're just like, yeah, we came home from the bar and we found this dead guy. But the cops are so ready to just like write this off. They're like, well, yeah, he was, we knew he had like a bad heart. So yeah, probably got real scared or, touched something, an exposed wire on some stuff. And like, they're pretty much done. And then one of them's like, wait, why was he here in the first place? And Peter's like, I mean, I'm guessing he must have like moonlighting as a burglar or something.
Yeah, and they're just like, yeah, okay, and then it's just like they just completely take that at face value.
Yeah, this guy who like whatever job he had, like this presumably is like a job that would have like require a degree and would pay fairly well. He's just breaking into scientists' basements, sure, whatever, and I think so. Then we have just like the next day, or like later on that day or something, Anna comes by to visit, and he like she's there to ask him questions, but he's like, while you're here, do you get like a vibe? How do you feel? Does it feel strange here to you in any way? And she's like, no, I mean, it's just here in your house, like it's a new place. I don't, I'm not really feeling much of anything, and they kind of like have some like sort of verbal sparring as he tries to ask her questions and she's not really interested in talking about them. And I can't like, somehow suddenly he's just giving her a lie detector test and she's just like willing to do it. I don't really know how this happens because it's like so quick.
It's the fucking, he's like using the graph thing that like measures the brain waves. Mm-hmm. And I think somehow Holt's brain is able to tell when she's lying, and he's like watching the motion of the brainwaves on the graph paper and like seeing that I just don't. They never bring that up either. They never go back to like, I can use this as a lie detector. They never use it on any of the other characters. It just does not come back up.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much just like don't think too hard about this, just go with it kind of stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
But the main thing he's asking her about is like, who is Marion Fane? What is her deal? And suddenly she's like, wait, I feel my like you're connected to my dad in some way. It just suddenly hit me. And she's like, okay, fine. I'll tell you about Marion. I'll tell you I'll tell you where to find her. So we cut to him, to Peter visiting Marion's house. And Marion is not trying to be like cagey about anything. She's like, yeah, I started out as Holt's secretary and then I was his mistress, and nobody, like, at first no one knew. I was just like a dirty little secret, and then I was sort of like, an open secret, and eventually, like, he just kind of moved on, lost interest in me, and I no longer had the job, and I've just been here in my own place at this point. And he's like, well, did you have something to do with his death or whatever? She's like, no, I mean, I've moved on. Like, I'm not really interested in what Holt's been up to. Like, it's just, I can't keep living that life anymore. But if you think somebody killed him, it was probably his daughter, because she stands to get a lot of money now that he's gone. She's going to take over the company. So yeah, I would look her way. So he, as he's going to leave, he is like getting into a limo, and there's like a limo driver there, and he's like, oh, thanks, Gabler, I think's the name he uses. And the guy's like, I'm not Gabler, sir, I'm whatever, Jones or something. And Peter's like, why did I say Gabler? And Marion Fane is like, standing on the porch, and she's like, that was Holt's limo driver. I don't know, maybe you heard him say it or something, I don't know, but yeah, that's Holt's limo driver. This is a different guy you're looking at right now, but that's where the name comes from. So I think then we have Peter going back to, he goes back to Holt's office. Peter, like, several times over, just, like, will be just, like, chilling in Holt's office, sitting in the chair, doing, like, kind of mirroring Holt, where, like, we never see his face. You know, he'll be, like, back turned in the chair, and then people will come in, and he'll turn, like, oh, I didn't see you there. You know,
Yeah.
kind of really leaning into this villain thing. Or I guess it's kind of indicating that, like, you know, he's Holt, so he's doing the Holt stuff. But again, he's like, I want to know about Gabler, the limo driver. And Anna's like, yeah, okay, I can tell you how to find him too. I don't know what this is what the point of all this is, but sure, have fun. Go talk to Gabler. And the scene here with Gabler, I thought was really fun. Like, it's, a very sort of like dark, noirish sort of thing where, like, he's trying to get information from Gabler, and Gabler is not willing to talk. He knows how to keep quiet. And then suddenly the phone rings, and Gabler goes to answer it, and he's like, "Is your name Corey?" And Peter's like, yeah, that's me. And he's like, the phone is for you. And, of course, this was sort of more a common thing back in the day before cell phones. You would just tell people where you were, and people would call, the restaurant you were eating at or whatever. But so Peter goes into the next room. He picks up the phone, and he's like, hello. And meanwhile, in the living room where Gabler is, there's a movie on that just happens to have a lot of really loud gunshots in the film. And Peter can't hear on the phone, and he's like, speak up, I can't, the TV's loud, what's going on? And eventually he's like, okay, I guess they hung up, like, I don't hear anybody. So he hangs up the phone, he walks back into the living room, and not all the gunshots were on the TV, because Gabler is dead.
Yeah, shot in the back of the neck too, like a kind of a weird spot.
Yeah, and of course the room is empty, and like immediately Peter hears police sirens, and he like goes and runs to the window and sees like the police is getting surrounded. Like, right, clearly he has been like set up here. This is, not only are we getting rid of Gabler, but we're trying to like get rid of Peter in the process. But the combination of Peter and Holt is too smart for this. He escapes out a window and like kind of does some.
He touches Gabler's body and gets blood all over his hand and leaves some on the window, that the blood on his hand comes back like in just a short moment.
Yes, yeah, the definitely like both literal and metaphorical blood on his hands here. Yeah, he gets away, and immediately, like, he's like goes down an alley or whatever, and he's suddenly in a jazz club, and it's like, just packed, like so many people here, and he sees the police coming in, and so he just like kind of dashes into the crowd. He starts like dancing with a girl to kind of like disguise himself, and with like the worst luck of all time, he's picked out of the crowd to win a competition and is dragged up on the stage. He wins. I forget, like it's something, but it's like he wins something for the girl that he was dancing with. So they're like getting ready to bring her up on stage. And this is where like I think he hugs her, and then suddenly people in the crowd are screaming because there's a bloody handprint on her back. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he ends up, running away again, but like before he can get too far, somebody like sneaks up on him or something. He gets like knocked out, and then we just like cut to him waking up later, and it's not the police. He's just like in a house with some like very like obvious sort of like mob type guys, or some, just some sketchy guys. And the main one is Immerman. He was an associate of Holt, and then he's just kind of got some goons around that I don't think are ever really named. But Immerman is frustrated because he and Holt were in the midst of a big deal, and Holt was flying to see him. So this explosion really fucked up this whole plan. And so we get specifics about what it is, which is that there is a British chemist who has developed a new drug to cure some disease. Again, I don't think they ever say. It's just kind of like, just go with it.
Yeah.
And the plan was they were going to get the patents. They were going to get control. They're going to do a Martin Shkreli. Like, they're going to, have full control over this important drug so that they can choose how expensive it is. And, like, Immerman's basically like, I think you know something. I don't know how to get a hold of the chemist, but I think you do. So if you help us out, maybe we'll, bring you in on the deal in some way. And he like shows paperwork proving the everything with Holt, and Peter looking at it are like, it's Holt, and he's like, you changed the amounts. This isn't what Holt agreed to. You're trying to screw me over because Holt's not around anymore. And Immerman's like shocked, but obviously he doesn't know that this is Holt that he's talking to. So I think like he just sort of storms out. He's like, I'm not going to do business with you at all. Like, you're trying to trick me. And then we see elsewhere, like, Marion Fane is sort of bringing people together too. It turns out she's a bit of a mastermind. Like, everybody in this is like a little sketchy. Like, for the most part, no one seems to be like, as we were saying with like Holt, like he's not, a criminal per se, but he's not a good guy.
Yeah.
And that seems to be like everybody is that. Like, they're operating just on the edges of what is legal, basically. And I think then we have Peter going to talk again to Anna, and he's like, he tells about Gabler being killed and, getting knocked out and waking up talking to Immerman and all that. And Holt's son is like, yeah, Immerman always struck me as kind of sketchy. I bet he's involved in this murder in some way. But, it seems strange because Immerman was like, I'm mad about this murder because it really fucked up my plans. So it's like, who is, everybody stands to maybe gain something or maybe to lose something. And everybody seems, they have a little bit of a motive, but they're all playing up how frustrated they are about the death. So like this murder mystery is doing a pretty good job of like setting up a lot of suspects and not making it really obvious who is the real, perpetrator of the crime. And I think then we have like Peter is talking to Anna and Stevenson about the will again, like who, what's going to happen because of the will? Like maybe that will help me figure out who's involved. But then we see Immerman and his crew, as you alluded to earlier, they've now broken into the lab. And there are people in the lab. Frank and
Ellen.
And Ella, they're in the lab. So they have Frank at gunpoint trying to telepathic, like they want him to try to communicate with Holt. And Frank's like, no, that's Peter. I can't do that. But then we cut from that to Marion Fane, who has Peter, and she's like, I hope you'll cooperate, because things will go a lot easier on you if you do that. So we have a phone call between these two locations. So Marion Fane and Immerman are in cahoots, and they want Peter to communicate with Holt's brain and talk, they want to keep everybody in the loop over the phone. So we're in two different places, but we're all working together on this project. Yeah. Whether we want to be or not.
I think the threat is specifically if they hear the phone cut, like if they hear the phone line cut off, they smash the brain on their end.
Yeah. Immerman is like, yeah, I'll smash the brain. And, it seems like, Holt wants to live. So tell Holt to tell us what's up, or he's gonna die. So that like the threat is directly to Holt, not to Peter. Like they're not like, we're gonna shoot Ella. No, we're gonna kill you, living brain. And then we get another sort of just like nonsense scene that doesn't really matter. When when the medical examiner guy died, there was a cop there who was just kind of drunk. Like, he was just like a sort of cartoonishly drunk cop guy. And he just like pops in to say hi. And they're like, there's like a little bit of tension. Like, oh no, is this going to cause everything to get fucked up? But no, they're just like, good to see you, but we're busy. And he's like, okay, I'll see you later. And he just leaves, and that's it. Like,
yeah, it's just like completely no fucking point to that scene. It doesn't like add to the overall tension because it's like introduced and then resolved in like 5 seconds. And it doesn't come back like in any way to like, he doesn't pop back up later, you know, at the end of the movie to like deal with something directly relating to the plot. It's just like, okay, what the fuck?
Yeah. And it's not like, if this movie was like 70 minutes long, I'd be like, oh yeah, they were padding the runtime. But it's like just a flat 190, like it's, or 90 minutes, like an hour and a half. Like, it didn't need this like 2-minute long scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, whatever. It doesn't hurt anything. It just was kind of nonsense. But so now we have, Fane is, interviewing Holt in Peter's mind and like wants to know about the chemist. And finally Holt's like, okay, I'll tell you, but I need information about who killed me. I want some evidence. This is what I've, this is my project. You can have your project. You can deal with the chemist, all of that. I just want to solve my own murder. And Fane is like, okay, I agree. I'll do it. But she like says this while she's like got her back turned to him. She's looking out a window, and suddenly she gets like a look on her face, like she sees something. She screams, and suddenly the window shatters as a bullet goes through it and hits her. So clearly somebody does not want information about the murder to get out. And as soon as she's dead, like Peter/Holt runs over, picks up the phone. And the phone line's gone dead. So he's like, oh no. So we just pretty much cut to him like he's rushed across town or whatever and has gotten back to the lab where Immerman and the crew are all gone. But the brain is gone. And he's like, oh no. But then Frank's like, no, don't worry. They took the monkey brain home. It's so funny that Holt's best friends didn't even recognize him. Haha. So they hid the real brain like in a cabinet or something. So they take it out. Then we have like Anna sneaking into the house now. Like she's broken in. So again, everybody can just break in.
Yep.
And Peter comes out and like confronts her, and they have it's more Holt really at this, like it's fully just Holt. And they kind of have this sort of tense discussion, and he's like, it was you. You're the one who did it. You killed me. And he goes to like attack her, but Frank appears in the lab and like flips some switches and puts the brain to sleep. And so, Peter kind of retakes over his body, saving Anna. And she kind of like sits down at a desk and like, has to recover from like getting choked out and everything. But eventually she gets up and leaves. And then like a little later, they all realize like, hey, there were some important papers sitting on that desk where Anna was recovering and they're gone now. That's interesting. So we just cut to like Peter following Anna and,
oh, it wasn't, it wasn't papers. It was the, cause when Holt died, he had the, speaker phone from the tape recording machine in his hand still, and that that right. was laying on the table from like after they had operated on him, and that's what she took.
Yeah, that's right. So I think Peter kind of like is hiding, following Anna, and I think he sees her like go into Stevenson's office and then leave, and he goes into Stevenson's office right afterwards and talks to his secretary and is like, I need to talk to him right away. The secretary's like, no, he's far too busy right now. I can take a message. And he's like, do you know anything about the tape recorder that Holt used on his plane? And she's like, oh no, Holt, he did not like tape recorders. He never used tape recorders. to dictate anything. Oh, except yeah, his last flight. Yeah, he did have a tape recorder. Now that you mention it, because my boss, Mr. Stevenson, gave him one. Because Stevenson had information on the tape that he wanted Holt to listen to and look over. But yeah, Stevenson he gave it to the limo driver Gabler, because he's a little bit of a handyman too. So Gabler installed it in the plane. So yeah, you should go. I know, I heard Gabler died, but like maybe Mrs. Gabler, the widow, she might know something. So we're really getting to the point in the mystery where like we need some dominoes to start falling.
Yeah.
So yeah, Peter goes to talk to Mrs. Gabler. Where it seemed like he did not seem like a guy who had a wife before, but suddenly
it was. I was completely under the impression that he was like a hermit who lived alone.
Yeah, you got the sense that like this was like a guy who had lived a bachelor's life because he'd been up to some dirty shit, and like he just was sort of like sadly living out his days now that he was no longer being used by Holt. But yeah, so Peter does talk to Mrs. Gabler, and she's like, yeah, I do remember Stevenson coming by. He did give my husband a tape recorder, and I think he took it down to his workshop for a little bit before the flight. And Peter's like, oh yeah, what'd your husband do before he was a limo driver? And she's like, oh, he worked in the Resistance. And Peter's like, in the sabotage department of the Resistance? And she's like, yeah, how'd you guess?
Lucky guess.
Yeah. So Peter's like, all right, I guess I gotta go talk to Stevenson again. He set up a murder. I guess it wasn't Anna. So he gets there, and Stevenson and Anna are together. So he's like, all right, so I've solved the case. It's time for the monologue where the detective tells you everything at the end and, does the accusation and all that. So get ready. We're doing that. So, he spells it all out, and he's like, you did, you hired Gabler to, plant a bomb in the tape recorder and install it and everything. And Stevenson's like, what? No, I genuinely, like, I needed that tape recorder installed, and I had Gabler install it because it was important that Holt, have the information on it. And Peter's like, well, let's see what the police think about this. And then suddenly he looks over, and Anna's just pointing a gun at him.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, what? I thought I had this all figured out. And she's like, it was me all along. You had your detective monologue, and now it's time for my villain monologue. And she's like, yeah, I did it. I killed my dad because he sucked. He was awful, and he was taking advantage of the sick and poor. Because that, what Emmerman failed to tell you is that medicine, it was medicine that could have saved my mom. And, he spent all this time getting a cure developed after she was already dead, and then he was going to make other people suffer the way she suffered. And I didn't think that was right. So I want to put a stop to it. But then we see that before Peter / Holt went into his whole detective monologue, he set up a recording device. And so we have cops in another room just like listening to this whole thing play out over their headphones. So they're like, okay, so it wasn't Stevenson, it was her. Like they just have everything they need now.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we have Anna is the murderer. She is the one who actually did break the law, but she was sort of, doing it for the right reasons, right? She's mad at her father being corrupt and like making, sick people suffer so that he could make money. So, she's got a little bit of like an eat the rich thing here going on. And it's her dad even. She's willing to kill her dad to like...
For the greater good, yeah.
Yeah. So... I think then we just she goes into the next room, and that's, I think...
She's got a meeting where she's going to give the formula for the medicine to all these drug companies so that they can all make it and nobody can have the patent on it.
Yeah. So Peter leaves because he knows the cops know everything. He's done his part. But he gets into a cab, and I think the son is just like in there waiting. And he's just like, yeah, I knew all of it. I knew the whole thing the whole time. I tried to warn my dad. I sent him a letter. And in the midst of all the stuff that Holt is sort of dictating at the beginning of the movie, one of the things he says is like, let him know, read and destroyed, as if like this is information that I don't want to get out. So I let him know I know about it and that no one else is going to find out about it. Holt knew that Anna was going to try to kill him. And I think then the son is like, don't you think it would have been better rather than go through all this process to have just let my father die, all of him, not let the brain go on and all that. If you would have just let things play out the way they were going to play out, everybody would be better off right now. And Peter is like, yeah, that's probably for the best. But then we see that his thumb is doing the tap thing again. So Holt's still there. He's still alive.
Yes.
We kind of a cliffhanger ending. We know we're not getting a sequel here, but we do have this sort of, Holt is presumably going to continue to puppet Peter around and, build a whole new empire and probably, get his revenge on his daughter in some way. But we're kind of left to our imaginations as to how that might all play out.
Yes, but that's it.
That's the brain.
Yep. I like this one a lot. Like we already said, I think the stronger focus on like the noir elements and making it much more of a direct kind of murder mystery sort of situation really helped it kind of stand out amongst all the other adaptations.
Yeah, it really is sort of like a happy medium between the other two versions. Like I like the mystery element, and I like the sort of the economic aspect of it. Like that, the first one, the murder was a little hokey. It felt too it didn't seem possible. The second one, we don't really have the mystery. We just know right away he's a tax evader. But here it's all about the gray areas of our economic system and the way that you don't actually have to be a tax evader. There's all kinds of ways to do nefarious shit within the bounds of the law, and what happens when that's allowed to play out for too long. So the murder felt more organic in this, and the economic stuff also made more sense. And so I just really, the only misstep in this is really just the unnecessary blackmail plot and the sort of drunk cop. It feels like all of that. I wonder if it was more of the movie at some point and they pared it down and ended up with this sort of stuff that doesn't really go anywhere. But it's not if a movie's 2.5 hours long and there's a bunch of unnecessary stuff, then I'm they should have edited better. This, I don't feel like the movie was dragging, so it didn't really bother me. But it's definitely the thing that keeps this movie from being really perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think it's such the trajectory of the three we've done so far is more than ever. I am very interested in the novels. So, we will definitely be getting to that pretty soon, obviously over on the Patreon, but I have ordered myself a copy, and I know Hayden, you've already got a copy. So, I'm looking forward to finding out how it plays out and talking with you about that in the future. But before we get to that, we've still got a couple more films. And as I kind of alluded to earlier, these are a little bit further of a stretch away from the, direct adaptation kind of format. And so next week we will be talking about another movie that actually came out this same year, 1962, The Brain That Wouldn't Die.
Yes. How many more adaptations do we have of this after The Brain That Wouldn't Die?
So I think that we have there is a remake of The Brain That Wouldn't Die from recent years, and I believe that's our last one.
Oh yeah. I was forgetting about that one.
Yeah, so I think in our first episode I did mention that there is another like one of the like anthology British TV series kind of Playhouse versions that I have heard exists, but have not been able to track down in any way. But if we ever find that somehow, obviously we'll come back and get to it. But as far as I know, that's the remake is the last one that we are able to get our hands on at this point. So yeah, we've got 2 more Donovan's Brain-ish adaptations ahead of us, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, I wonder how much Kurt Siodmak got in royalties from all these adaptations.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he was paid. It's interesting in that like he, was a novelist and also a screenwriter, but like didn't really seem to have anything to do with the screen adaptations of his novel. It would seem like a slam dunk, but I guess that's the same thing. Like, Stephen King he's written like a screenplay that had nothing to do with any of his novels. And obviously has written a shit ton of novels, but for the most part, he does not. I think there's like 1 or 2 examples of him like directly adapting one of his previous works into a screenplay. But for the most part, it's kind of like you just want to let your thing go in the world and let other people interpret from there. And I mean, I guess a good example is if you look at The Shining. When Stephen King does try to hold on to the reins too tight to an adaptation, it's a much less good version than the one where he just lets it go and be its own thing.
Yeah, I think the only screenplay that he's written that got generally like positive reception was Storm of the Century, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is its own thing. Is not
right. Yeah, it's not like
previously a novel.
Exactly.
Yeah, which makes sense. Like, yeah, if you keep tinkering with your thing, I think it's going to lose the power of it. You want somebody else to interpret it. You want that, death of the author thing to kind of happen. So yeah, I maybe Siodmak knew that and just like stepped back and just let the money roll in and left it alone.
Yeah, I think. That's probably the best route to go for that. But well, we hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. If you are loving these Donovan's Brain adaptations, let us know. If you can think of another Donovan's Brain adaptation that we might not know about, also let us know about that. Anthony, where can they find us?
So you can find us on all the socials at The Frankencast. You can email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com. We're also over on YouTube. And of course, you can always find us at patreon.com/thefrankencast, where we got all kinds of stuff. And, as I've been hinting, we're definitely going to be talking about the Donovan's Brain novel over there in the near future. So jump on board now and you'll be, you'll get that right in your inbox as soon as we do it.
Yes, definitely looking forward to that. We also have we're doing a bunch of comic book stuff over there too. Eric is still coming on with Anthony to do the Munsters. There's plenty over there on the Patreon for everybody to enjoy. So definitely check it out.
Yeah. Yep, we'd love to have you.
All right. Well, I think that's about all we've got to say on this one. I guess that's to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman, Eric Velasquez, and Hayden Knorr. Follow us online at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.